everybody, welcome to Simon Says Stamp Falling For You blog hop. I'm so excited to be here today, and I have a card here that I did with some of Simon's new and exciting product, and this is one of their newest background stamps, and I love how you can turn it and make it like a check. I used the mint and the sea glass ink from Simon Says Stamp to create this background. Here's a few other color options making this check. Now let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to show you how I use the stitch rectangles to create a frame. I wanted to create a frame base for my card, and I'm using the stitched slopes, which can be a summer product as well. And I'm using the cut line and the stitch line together on some of the mint cardstock to create the grass. I thought just a soft, pretty color for grass would look nice. So that's what I did, and you can see it here on your left. Now these are two of the new stamp sets, and I decided that I love them both, but I'm going to use Lila's Heart. I put some foam on the back of the frame, and I'm just going to set my background, my card base aside, and I've cut a rectangle here that I'm going to do my stamping on. And I was debating to using the girl with that flag, and I ended up just using the Lila's Heart set. They're both so great and so fun, and I can't wait to color the other set as well. So I've lined up, I figured out where I want to position her on my card, and I'm just taking off the balloon. I'm going to use 3 of these balloons, and I'm just positioning how I want them, like if they're floating, if they're attached, if they're not. And I love this little string here. So I'm going to stamp that 3 separate times on my background, and then I'll be coloring it. So here we go. I figured the girl's I'm gonna cut her out, but I didn't know how long I wanted the first string to go. So I'm inking it up with my mini little ink cube. I love using this, and just stamping 3 of the strings. Pretty straightforward, very simple. Now I'm positioning the hearts here, see how I want them, and I'm wiping off part of that heart because I want it to go behind it. I always like to take my finger and make sure all the ink is off. That worked out perfect because I wanted it behind, and then I'm going to just stamp half of that heart and put that behind the other 2, and then I can just draw a line in to fill that in. And I'm just using the bottom of the string one more time. It really doesn't matter how it goes or where you put that string or whatever. And I wanted to make one of them longer, so I just stamped the bottom and attached it to the other 2 strings as you saw. So now I'm going to go ahead and stamp her. I'm going to be stamping her arm and her dress again because I want to cut those out and pop them. They're really easy to do, and it gives the card a lot more dimension. So I'm just checking to see everything's going to fit. And I need to stamp the tips of those shoes on my grass. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And then I'll adjust my grass and trim it as needed to fit on there. I'm going to go ahead and get the sentiment out of the way. I use Simon Says Stamp black ink for that. And now I'm all set and ready to go and color. So here we go. I always like to start with my skin and my face first, and I'm using E50 on the legs, face, and arms, and I'm just giving it a coating of color right now. It's all very simple shading today, and so you just want to lay down that first coat of color, and that's what I'm doing with E50. Now I'm using RV10 on the cheeks, and I like to bring it from the hairline in towards the center of the face. And you might be noticing those big splotches on the piece of paper on the right. I overfilled my marker, so that's what happened there. So don't forget to color on the other side. Now I'm testing some browns. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some packaging that I used to open my stamp set, and I'm putting some of the E33 down on that packaging. You could use a block, your craft mat, anything. And I'm taking the tip of the E50 to bring in some of that darker color for shading. It's really easy to do, and it's a great way to bring in your darker colors. So I'm doing that on the legs, in the areas where it might be a little darker. And I say might, I don't worry about shadows and where the light is coming. I just kind of have my own thing. So I'm doing that on the legs, I'll be doing that on the arms, and then part of the face. And it's really simple. You can see how easy that is. You always want to make sure that when you're finished doing this, that you clean the tip off of the lighter color onto your scrap paper. Now this is called tip to tip, and I'm taking some of the darker color from all that gook around the tip, and I'm taking that and using my shadow there. You kind of get a little bit more of a concentrated color doing that. You could use either technique and try this with any colors. It really makes it an easy way to blend. Now I didn't clean the tip on that, shame on me. And I picked up my zero because I forgot this is not a scrap piece of paper. So I am removing that little bit of E50 I got there. Now you always want a piece of cardstock underneath your paper. So the color doesn't bounce back. Alright, so now I'm cleaning that tip, and I'm just going to blend out those colors a little bit, and then I'll be moving on to the hair. Okay, so about the hair, I'm just going to speed this up because you don't have all day, and it's kind of a long video anyway since I'm doing the complete card today. So go ahead and always start with your base coat and then bring in some of the medium color. And you can do that. I like to bring that color in from the bottom and the top, and then I blend it again with the light. Now this time I'm doing a little different. I'm adding like some darker highlights to her hair, and then I'm going to use my medium color to blend that out and then bring in the light color. So here's the medium color. I'm going over that dark line to soften the color, and now my light color just to kind of work it all together. So it's pretty easy. So I'm going to speed this up a little quicker. So as I finished the hair, I realized that I did not color the neck. I always seem to miss one little body part. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up my E50 again and blend a little bit of color to smooth that out. Now I'm just kind of grabbing any pinks. Lila loves pink, and for some reason the photo it looks a little bit more red, but just go ahead, like always put down one color on your image. Just kind of coat it, give it a nice coat like you would fingernail polish. You just give it a first coat. So that's what I'm doing here, and then I'm just going to bring in a little bit of shading. You could really just put glossy accents on it and call it a day. But I'm using 3 different color pinks, and I'm using the colors that are close to them just for a little bit of shading, and that's it. And you can use any color pinks, reds, green and blue, you know, it's fun. It's fun just kind of picking random colors. So now I brought in a darker color, and I'm just using the lighter color here to smooth and blend that out. I'm letting the markers do the work today, nothing complicated. Once I finish the balloons, I'm going to use some warm and cool colors to add some shadows and shading to this image to give a little bit more depth. And I always start with my darker color when I'm doing this. I'm starting with a C4, which is a cool color, and I'm only using this darker color on certain parts of the hearts, the strings, and on certain sides of the girl. It's where I think the darker shadows would be, but I always just do it on the left. And like I said before, I don't worry about where the proper light is coming from and stuff. So I'm just adding a few little areas on the strings where it might be shaded. I'm not thinking about this at all. And then I'm going to add my medium color to go over this and like blend it out a little bit. And then we'll be using a lighter color. So I'm going to speed this up. I like to mix the warm and the cool. So now I'm grabbing, we just used a cool, which was the C4. Now I'm using a W3. You can use any number you want, just pick a light, a medium, and a dark. So I'm using the medium color and I'm tracing that darker line and softening what I've done with the darkest. And now I'm bringing in my lightest color, a warmer one. I like to mix them. So anyways, I'm using a WO, the lightest color, and I'm going over those lines to soften them and blend them in. And then some of the other areas that I didn't use anything, I'm going over this lighter color just to add a teeny tiny bit of shading. And there's no rhyme or reason, just experiment and have a good time. A lot of times I like to use blue, and I love how blue really makes things pop. But since I have blue and green in the background, I decided to use some grays and some warm and cool grays. All right, so I don't want to forget to color her socks, and we're moving on to the dress here, and just a really fast color, and then I'm going to bring a little shading in on the right. Oh, and I pointed out that I got some pink on her arm, so I'm kind of just fixing that area there. And then I'll finish the dress. Now I'm using some RV66, I think, and I'm just bringing in some of that darker color on the right-hand side and a little touch on her socks. And then I'm going to take the other pink and just color the whole thing and let the alcohol marker do the work. Now I'm taking a 0 colorless blender and removing some of that ink just to make some stripes, and this is really fun to do. I was too lazy to plug in my heat gun, but I really recommend that you dry your work like right now and then you do it again, because it softens because it's saturated, and that the line is not as distinctive. So if I gave it a quick dry and I did it again, the line would be more distinctive. So I'm just going over that again and again. And the more you do it, the more color you remove. And this is a great illustration why you need that paper underneath, because it won't work as well if you're coloring on a craft mat. Okay, so it's really quick and easy to cut out this dress. And I'm going to speed this up to save a little bit of time, and then I want to show you how I take a marker. It's a Memento. It's the same ink as I stamped to cover the white line. You get the thicker tip, and you just run it around the edge of your stamped image, and it gives you that nice finished look. Now I'm just checking to make sure that everything's in order here, and I need to color those shoes, and then I'm pretty much done. So because we're on 2 different thicknesses of paper, I just decided to do black shoes, and on a good day I would use glossy accents and make them nice and patent leathered. Nice. I love patent leather shoes. So I'm just using 2 grays. You could use 1 black. It's not a big deal. And red would be really fun too. But I just wanted to show you how you do that little bit, and then it just makes it work out. How you don't have to tuck it her legs under the grass or whatever. All right, so we're taking a Copic or a thin, I think it's a micron this time, Copic, micron. There's so many fine tip markers, and I'm just adding some little lines. I added some lines to accent those white lines where we remove the color on her dress. And then I'm just tracing over the hearts. I'm filling in the lines and darkening some of them to hide if there was any mistakes or anything. And then I'm going to be adding some little details to the hearts. Take a time. I hope you don't mind. I made this a little faster. I hope you don't get dizzy. But I'm just adding some straight lines on one of the balloons. And then I'm adding some circles on this one that's in the forefront. And then I'll just be adding some little lines to make like a star or something on this last one. And then I'm going to take the colorless blender and just remove some of that color to give a little bit of texture and depth. And I'm doing that on the kind of plaid that I created. And if I wasn't pressed for time, I would have covered this one with the polka dots with some glossy accents. So I just love adding these little details. It's always fun. So thank you so much for joining me today. My blog is a daily marker, and I have a coloring challenge coming up June 1. So I hope you'll subscribe, and the supplies are listed in the bottom. And have a great day.